Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Free Banter and Insights. Today we are doing our game week review. And what I'll do is I'll begin with a roundup of all results, and wherever the panel of Varun and Manan want to comment, then we can discuss those further. So there were simultaneous games happening on Saturday. Brentford beat Bournemouth 3-2. I think after Bournemouth defeated City last week, I think the way they started the game and when they were leading 2-1, I actually felt that they could win this as well. But great credit to Brentford for fighting back. Fulham got a great away win at Crystal Palace. I think Crystal Palace are struggling this season without Olise. And I think that can be one talking point as well that we can get into. West Ham and Everton played out a nil-nil draw. I think both clubs are under pressure, and I think in a way, possibly, I would say a manager swap between both these clubs can do them, a better justice. I would say, like Everton under Lopetegui and West Ham under Daesh, I think can be a better combination. Wolves got a great win against Southampton, but unexpected win. And then the result of, let's say, in India time Saturday, wherein Brighton got the better of Manchester City. And we definitely have to do like let's say, a little bit of a discussion of how Guardiola has, lost four times in a row for the first time in his managerial career, which is insane, considering that his managerial career started in 2008. So let's go on, Varun.
So I actually saw the game, right? Like I was watching the
Hmm.
game, and I don't think that Man City played badly. It's just that, uh, like I think they are a little open at the back now, and then it's just that the teams are getting a couple of chances, and they are just kind of capitalizing on those chances. So it usually happens that sometimes teams do get these chances and they kind of miss or kind of Man City, they don't make Man City pay. But for some reason, like um, in yesterday's game or this weekend's game as well, Brighton just took their chances really well. So I feel that like it's not. I don't think City are playing that bad actually. Like at least in versus Brighton, they were not that bad. And there was one replay in which you could actually see Haaland's frustration when they just let in the first goal. Like he was
Okay.
so frustrated. It was like I don't know what's happening. Like, but a very weird thing to see Guardiola's team actually losing 4 games in a row.
This sort of shows the importance of the pivot position in a Guardiola system. Whatever
Yeah,
type of football, like, his football season to season is very nuanced, like it changes. And
yeah.
but whatever happens, the pivot position is the most important for his team. Uh, Pivot, and I would say second is the goalkeeper position. So these two positions are super important, and not having Rodri uh, creates a huge problem for the City side because Kovacic does whatever best he can do, but he's no Rodri and he cannot cover for the times when City lose the ball and they cannot win it back immediately, and then the opposition comes at them. And he cannot cover the space, like his positional sense is not as good as Rodri. Like Rodri is sort of a once in a generation kind of a player, if I might say that. Like, there's no parallel to him right now in the world for his position. So yeah, they are missing him, and this might continue for the rest of the year because he's probably not going to come back this season.
I was also surprised by their starting lineup. They started this player called Simpson in uh, in the back four, whereas they had like someone like Ake and Akanji sitting on the bench. Like a very surprising move, right, on Guardiola's part. Like it's so the back four, if you see, it's you have Rico Lewis and Simpson, who are not that solid defensively. Or I mean, I'm just assuming Simpson is not that solid defensively because he's very new to the Premier League, right? So with Guardiola and just Walker, I think it's and Brighton are not that. Not like that poor a team going forward, right? And that too away to Brighton. I think it was a big gamble not to start Akanji and or Ake for that matter.
Perhaps it's squad rotation, right? Like Man City also have been beset with a lot of injuries, and Pep is known to have like to work with a very small squad and then supplement it with youngsters from the academy whenever he requires them. So, like, I think last week he commented that we have 13 first team players only available, right? So, perhaps it's just squad rotation that Akanji has been playing a lot. Ake, I'm not sure has been playing a lot or not, but Akanji definitely has been playing a lot.
Hmm. But I don't know. Ake was on the bench. Akanji was also on the
Hmm.
bench. I don't know.
They
But
were
yeah, I
both
was
on
I
the
was surprised.
bench, but I think the fact that they did not even come on in that context, right? Like I think he used two
Mhm.
substitutions. So maybe possibly they were injured because if I look at their bench,
No, they
there are
wouldn't come on,
four.
no, because they were behind 2-1. Why would he bring on defenders?
No, in the sense ki, let's say you have a maximum of five substitutions that you can make.
Yeah,
Now, if I look at their bench, they have four kids under the age of 20. And the only two experienced players who are there are Ake and Akanji and Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne who came on.
yeah,
So if I look at their starting lineup, at least on paper, Walker and Simpson are playing centre back. Rico Lewis is playing right back. Guardiol is playing left back. So the fact that these four are starting over, let's say, an Ake or a Akanji, possibly means that they are not fully fit. Like I think that could be the only rational explanation. I think one game to go before the international break, you wouldn't mind, an extra overload as well.
Mhm.
yeah. I know. So that's what I was a little surprised by that. I was a little surprised by that move. Uh, so like for me, it was like if you have kind of lost 3 games, you would really want to change that going into the national break, right? And something that Arsenal did with Odegaard as well, right? Odegaard was not 100% fit, and neither was Declan
Correct.
Rice, right? So, but they actually took that gamble, knowing that there's a 2 week break coming up, and then we can kind of take a gamble on this a big game before the international break, and then kind of rest these players out for the next 2 weeks, kind of a thing. So, could
Correct.
that be done? I don't know. Like, I mean, of course, Guardiola is the best person to kind of make that decision, but a little surprising decision nonetheless. Also, like, I feel somewhere Foden is yet to kind of get in his stride. I mean, I think he's still playing in like a second gear or something. Like, he's still not kind of at his, he's far from his peak, kind of a thing. So let's see. I think he will need to come back in form pretty quick.
Yeah, it's strange, right? Because he was player of the season last year, and
Yeah.
he had a slow start to the season. And initially, we were all thinking that it's because he had a long summer, no break in the summer, no preseason, so he's just sort of training his way back into peak fitness and then match fitness. But it doesn't like it's been now 4 months, so well, 3.5 sort of months. But it seems like we there is something missing there. Maybe it's just like sometimes players have such great seasons and then they sort of rest on their laurels a little and there is a bit of a drop off. Maybe it's that, we don't know, but yeah, it's strange.
But Savinho, on the other hand, looks like a crazy player, man. Like, he looks so good playing on that right wing. It's I don't know how they find these
Riyad Mahrez
players.
reborn.
He's way better than Riyad Mahrez. I feel like he is Riyad Mahrez plus plus. So
Wow.
yeah. It's like for him, he was just taking on the fullbacks and anyone on the right wing so easily, like kind of, and with he has such good pace, such good control. I think he's going to be the next superstar in
Riyad
this City
Mahrez.
lineup. He's going to be the next superstar in the City lineup.
But
So
like it's so unfortunate that whenever I sort of hear a discussion about Savinho or I am talking about Savinho, the first thing in my mind is that City sort of gamed the system to get him for really cheap after what he did last season, right? And it's just unfortunate for a player to give that type of a perception to various people. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I may not be in majority, but I may not be the only one as well, right? Like the first thing that comes to mind when people think of you is the fact that you were sort of transferred into the club by gaming of a system. Like so, but yeah, he's been crazy good. Yeah.
So just the context on Savinho, City identified him as a youngster. They so City have a multi-club model, right? So they asked Savinho to be part of Troyes, and from Troyes he got through to Girona, and then from Girona he got. I think last year him and Dobvik were like crazy players for Girona, and now this season he got transferred to City, and like Varun has mentioned, I think he can be the next superstar in the Premier League now.
And you know the fun part is like because there are three clubs or like three European clubs that I can think of. I'm sure there are a couple of more in the City football group, and Girona and City are both in the Champions League. So technically, a player cannot transfer from Girona to City. But because he's at Troyes, which is a club that will likely never qualify for the Champions League, it is such a smart sort of decision to bring
Yeah,
such players to Troyes and then loan them to Girona, and then Girona can do well, and City can just buy them for really cheap because Jean-Claude Todibo, United wanted him from Nice so bad. Like he was our first choice centre back this season to get, but because Nice and United were both in the Europa League, he could not transfer from Nice to United. So like having now like I know Ineos has another club in Switzerland. I forget the name. So I expect more clubs to have a multi-club model and have at least one club which is going to be always like not qualifying for Europe, but it would be sort of a club
feeder
where
club.
players, yeah, like players are purchased and then they go to better clubs in the group to like get experience, and then they are sold to the best clubs if they do well, without sort of affecting this dynamic that both clubs are in the same competition in Europe and therefore they cannot have transfers of players between them.
Correct.
The club's name is Club Lausanne Desport.
Lazon the sport, yeah.
But very interesting because I think Guardiola looks like a man who's just, frustrated and how. Like if you see his post-match interview, and if you just, I think this is the first time the media has tried to put pressure on Guardiola, which has never happened in the last few years. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
really interesting how he reacts after the international break. In fact, he's very lucky that the international break has come.
I
If the
swear.
international break would not have come, it could have been serious pressure for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next one is, I think, again, the result of the weekend, wherein Liverpool, the juggernaut, just keep on going, beating Villa at home 2-0 and getting 28 points now, which is really, really impressive. They are now 5 points ahead of City. They are now, if I'm not wrong, 9 points ahead of Arsenal. So I think it's a great start to the season.
Yeah, it's
I
been
don't
very
think this
seamless,
was
right?
the. I don't think this was the outcome result of the weekend. Result
Okay.
of the weekend was Ipswich beating Tottenham 2-1.
I agree. I
But
agree. I
I,
agree.
I don't think many people care about Tottenham.
No, but how can you lose to Tottenham, man? How can you lose to Ipswich, man? Like,
So Ipswich are actually a very good team here. So I was just going through a couple of articles as well. So Kieran McKenna has got this Ipswich team from League One to the Premier League in what, 2.5 seasons, if I'm not
Two
wrong.
seasons. Two
Two
seasons. So
seasons,
in his two full seasons, he's got promotions. Uh, from League One to Championship, Championship to Premier League.
Premier
Like
League.
Ipswich, I feel are sort of like a bit like the Burnley of last year, where they were superb in the championship, playing brilliant style of like fast attacking football, but that doesn't work in the Premier League if you don't have the players, right? But like even Southampton to a certain extent, like they're trying to play how they were playing in the championship, and they are getting found out a bit or a bit more. But yeah, but Ipswich is a seriously good team. Like on their day, they can do good
but
damage.
it was Spurs at home, by the way.
Yeah, but
But it's
this is
Spurs,
this is
right?
what
Like,
Spurs do. This is what Spurs do, right? They win a very good game midweek or in the last weekend, and then an expected game they drop points. Everything kind of evens out for them.
true, true.
The
But yeah,
bigger, bolo,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm saying the bigger aspect is if you look at the table, third spot is like right now at Chelsea and they're at 19 points. And United, who has sacked a manager in the beginning of the season, are 4 points of third. So you can imagine how close and how congested it is. And just imagine in like, let's say, there's a good possibility that by the end of November, United could actually be top four. It's not unrealistic.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, uh, the rank last week. I was not so happy with the sacking, but let's
That
not get there again.
that that
But
that
saying
is nowhere related.
but I
That's
would
why I would
honestly
say that's
say
why should there should be the sacking, because now at least United with the new manager has a chance to come back fast. You
yeah.
wait longer and then that chance diminishes. So
I would also, just like you guys to say a few words for Van Nistelrooy. Like it's crazy how well he has done in his short tenure at the club, and all the results which have happened. Of course, they are results which he should have won on paper, but as we know that the game is not won on paper usually, especially for United. So I think Manan, you can share a few words on him.
Yeah. So, like, on a personal level, I'm very happy. I have been a huge admirer of Ruud van Nistelrooy since I started watching football. He was the central striker for United when I started watching football, and until he was playing, like, he was my most favorite forward. He had whatever limitations, whatever, but I loved watching him play. And then, of course, I'm happy with the results that he's got, and he's sort of like he emotes a lot on pitch, and that sort of like helps you connect with him. You know, like you feel that he's a fan, and he's sort of. I'm sure all managers have the feelings, but some managers emote, and some managers keep it private. And like you connect with a manager who emotes more, right? Uh, so results are great, but I do feel that the football has not really been very different to what it was previously. Um, like he got a bit lucky in the first game against Leicester City, where like there was this crazy long range goal from Casemiro that you would not expect him to shoot or like it to go in, and that went in, and that sort of opened the game. And then United cantered through, like scoring five, I guess 5-2 or something. And then even yesterday, you see like the Bruno shot. I mean, he's been taking those shots all season long. It just goes in. And the second goal is own goal, which like Bruno had missed it, sort of, right? So in another era, this would just like not go in. So he's been a bit lucky, and I think he's also admitted that in his interviews, post-match interviews, that we've been a bit lucky. But yeah, it's like it's created like the whole results, and just having a club legend manage the team on an interim basis has created a very good emotion inside the club and also outside the club amongst the fans. And it's going to be very cruel because I feel he's not going to continue as an assistant manager in the team, because Ruben Amorim is going to bring 5 of his assistants, and then like how many assistants do you require? Like there has to be like, I don't think there's a need or role for 6 assistants in the backup, like support staff. So I feel that he may not continue as a first team coach or an assistant manager. Maybe he'll get another role somewhere. Uh, okay. So yeah, I was just saying that it would be ironic that the manager with the best win percentage in history of Manchester United might not even stay on as assistant manager or first team coach.
Actually, that's where I feel Ineos has done a very smart thing by appointing a new manager immediately after sacking Den
Mhm.
Hag,
Mhm.
because they really wouldn't want a repeat of the whole Solskjaer story,
Mhm.
where you interim manager comes in, he's a ex-United player, and then all the fans get emotionally carried away with the whole thing and be like, okay, the team is kind of bouncing back, uh, like the new manager bounce, and then like just everyone is on the euphoria of making him like a new permanent manager. I think it would have been a grave mistake to again make Nistelrooy as a full-time manager, according to me. So
I feel Nistelrooy has better credentials than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but I agree that it's better to have the full-time manager in. In fact, such conversation about whether United need Amorim has already started. I was just scrolling through YouTube and I saw like a thumbnail of Ian Wright and another like pundit on one of, I think they are on BBC or some one of the UK shows, and the
Right and
caption
Kelly.
says, sorry,
The Right and Kelly show.
probably I don't remember, but the caption says that they are discussing whether United need Amorim or whether they could have just gone with Ruud van Nistelrooy, right? So this conversation's already started even before, like even after the manager's been appointed for a week, you know. So I'm happy that a full-time coach is appointed, but I like sincerely I would wish Van Nistelrooy stays in some capacity.
So, a couple of statements which I had read on this. One, Bruno came out and said that they really wanted to give Van Nistelrooy a great send off. So, they did their best to make sure that they got the results which they needed, which is good. But I think if he would have said that for Ten Hag, I think Manan would have been happier. And on the other end of the spectrum, Van Nistelrooy came out and said that United is the only team in the world where he would consider being an assistant manager because he came from PSV and I think he had done a good job at PSV. So I think still there's a good possibility that he stays. There would be a kind of plan for him because I don't see him leaving PSV for United as an assistant manager if they don't have a plan for him. So there would be some plan in place, and possibly he may be an assistant, or maybe he may manage the academy, or maybe he would get a role somewhere in the hierarchy. I don't know, but I think as an assistant manager, it'll be a great experience for him to, collaborate with Amorim as well. That'll be a good experience for him as well, I feel.
So, a couple of corrections. He didn't come here from PSV. He was unattached
Okay.
when United got him. I
Okay.
do, yeah. So that was one. And secondly, he wants to stay. He's been very clear
Mhm.
about it that I want to
Correct.
stay. And
Correct.
players have been very vocal about the fact that they want him to stay. Not just Bruno, but
Mhm.
every player that has been interviewed and asked this question. But it just comes down to the fact that how many assistants like can you accommodate? Like it's too many cooks spoil the broth. That kind of a situation. Amorim's going to bring five of his assistants. So there's already Darren Fletcher, who's sort of like a conduit between the youth teams and the first team. So like it's a problem of plenty, and that's why there is a feeling that he might not stay. What I like is what I like about Amorim is that he's been so clear from the first press conference that he did when these rumors started. He's been so clear that my focus is sporting. I am not going to discuss anything United. First, he was like, we have this offer, but I'm going to take my time. I'm going to think about it. Then once he decided, then he's like, okay, I've decided, but I have 3 or 4 more games to go, and I'm going to just focus on that. And he's not even picked the phone up and called Van Nistelrooy to discuss anything. So they were supposed to have a discussion today when both their tenures as have ended, right? Like Van Nistelrooy focuses
Mhm.
on United,
Correct.
Amorim focuses on Sporting. So that kind of clarity is something that I really appreciate, that Amorim has been clear with all concerned, including the fans, including the media, who are always like hungry for, like more inside information.
Okay.
just the last thought on this. It would be like, just because Bruno is saying that the players want Nistelrooy to stay, if I was a United fan, I wouldn't. Just because of that, I wouldn't want Nistelrooy to stay, because these players are, there is, I feel, some mentality issue in the United player group. I feel kind of a thing, and that's why it's been one failure after failure in on a managerial
Mhm.
position. And it's not these
Mhm.
managers are bad or something. These are world
Mhm.
class managers. I
Mhm.
feel these players need to be taken out of their cushioned kind of spots, and I do. And if you want a manager coming in, he should be having a clean slate with like the player and the previous like a ascendant manager of a previous regime having some kind of internal kind of attachment or anything like that. I mean, it just creates too much mess, I feel. So I, if I was a United fan, I wouldn't want Nistelrooy to stay. You saw the same thing, right? There were times when Fletcher was there, Carrick was there, and all of these ex players were there in the backroom staff from one manager to another manager. Like it's too much of a mess because there are too many things going on in the too many things going on backstage, right? So it will never allow a manager to have like a clean start. Shall we move on to the
Cool.
next one? The big game of the weekend.
We can, and I
We
think
already discussed Ipswich and Tottenham.
uh, Yui, what were your thoughts?
I think Chelsea played really well. I think surprisingly, I was very surprised to see the Arsenal lineup. This was on paper their best lineup for sure. And I didn't expect Odegaard to start. I didn't expect Rice to be there after Arteta's comments. And the fact that they were starting, I felt that they would have the upper hand and they could actually get an easy victory. But on the whole, I feel from the way the game started, I think firstly, Cole Palmer started well, but then after a while, he was completely, let's say, not involved too much.
Yeah,
For me,
Partey was
yeah,
shadowing him
yeah,
really well. Yeah.
yeah, they didn't allow him time and space on the ball at all. But at the same time, if we look at from a Chelsea perspective, I think Cucurella, Caicedo, Neto, they were really, really good. I think Cucurella marked Saka out of the game. I think very rarely I have seen Saka not being able to influence a game. And the only time Saka influenced the game was when Mudzik came on and he was marking Saka. So apart from that, I think it was a really good game from him. Caicedo, given the captain's role, the fact that he also captains Ecuador, I think that made a better fit, honestly. And he was all over the place, like single-handedly, like he kind of dominated that midfield area and made sure that he's in the right positions. And Neto, even in the first half, there was like he took, I think, almost 10 touches on that left hand side, delivered a great cross in, and I don't know how Gusto managed to miss the target from 2 yards out. I think that should have been goal one. And other than that, of course, Arsenal came back strongly. They had some good moments. Havertz was offside by a whisker, and I think there were a lot of good moments overall as well. I think from all the big games that I've seen this season, I think this was one of the better quality games in
Yeah.
terms of at least a fan perspective.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the games are way too cagey and very uninspiring. Here, you could see both teams having an intent to win, which was really interesting, right? And
Mhm.
at the end, honestly, I felt Arsenal would go. They should be very disappointed because Trossard had literally the goal open. Like I think he just had to hit the target and
Yeah.
they would have come up with 3 points. So I think from that perspective, I think Arsenal would be disappointed. But on the whole, I felt Chelsea deserved a draw for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think draw was a fair result for sure. So just couple of points from a Chelsea point of view. I think the partnership of Neto and Cucurella was great on the to start off with. I think both of them together were instrumental in kind of keeping Saka out of the game. And that's, I feel, when Neto moved to the other wing and Mudryk came in, that's when I felt Saka had a little bit of joy. Although, like, he had to be substituted at the 80th minute, I think that was a big moment in the game. Um, and then I feel Neto was so good in the game as well, right? Of course, Caicedo was really good as well. Neto was so good, and you see the difference, right? Ben White was actually doing quite well against Neto on that flank, and I actually messaged on the group when he switched the flank, right? Neto moved on the right hand side. That I think Timber is defensively a weak point, and there have been so many changes on that left back position. Sometimes it's Zinchenko, sometimes it's Calafiori. Now there is Timber. The partnership between Gabriel and Timber is not that settled, I feel, and that's where I feel Neto, I think, kind of, I think could have done much more damage, I feel. And then getting James also on that right hand side instead of Gusto. I think if they could have, in the last 10 minutes, Chelsea could have played those two more in the game, I think Chelsea could have got a second goal as well. Like, I was really worried with that combination on the right hand side, Neto and James versus Timber and Gabriel. I was really worried that Chelsea might get a second one in the closing moments. Couple of points I felt. I think we are still making some defensive errors. As I said, first of all, the left back and Gabriel position needs to be a little more solidified. They need some time together. Timber needs to be defensively a little bit more solid. There were times when we were still not closing down the wingers and letting the crosses come in, which is very dangerous to do in like a versus a good team. So need to iron out those things. I feel Thomas Partey played really well defensively, but his distribution, I think, needs to improve. I think him, Gabriel, and Declan Rice, and not just this game against Chelsea. I think it has been since the start of the season that they have been very slow in distributing the ball. Right, they have been dwelling on the ball way too much. You could see that in the first half as well. Right, they are like kind of Thomas Partey had like 6-7 touches before making a pass. Right, so I think the game needs to move a lot faster, and Odegaard does that. So without Odegaard, that was the problem, right? Like the movement of the ball wasn't that fast, and we were kind of getting stuck. And you could see Odegaard in the first half shouting at them to kind of switch the flanks faster. Like, I don't know whether you guys actually saw that. Odegaard was on the right hand flank and just shouting that, like, you need to switch the ball faster. And that's where you open up teams, right? Where you are going from one flank to the other flank really fast and then overloading the flanks, kind of a thing. So I think that distribution, they need to work on it. It has to be faster. And I think they need to iron out the offsides as well. Way too many offsides happening for some reason. So I don't know why all of a sudden these offsides have kind of crept in the game. But you saw so many times Havertz being offside, Martinelli being offside. Somehow that needs to be ironed out. So kind of few things for Arsenal to work on as well. But you could see the impact that Odegaard has on the team, right? Like it is a massive change. So, and what a ball by him for Martinelli's goal.
I think he does that very often, and I think, like, in all honesty, I think it was a keeper error. You can't get beaten on your near post like that. Like, it's okay if he kind of finds a far post with a very good curling shot, but at the near post, you can't allow.
So I
a
think
top-class keeper can't allow it.
I think Sanchez got a little confused because if he would have covered his near post, right, Saka was open in the middle. So it would have been an easy pass for Martinelli to Saka and then Saka to score, kind of a thing. So because they had clearly beaten the offside trap, so both Martinelli and Saka were through on goal. So it would have been an easy, like, kind of a pass from Martinelli to Saka and then Saka scoring, kind of a thing. So I feel that's where he was a little confused. Should he kind of step a little to the left to kind of anticipate the pass that Martinelli is going to do, given that he's a bit off form and he might not take a shot or kind of cover the near post. So
But in coaching, like goalkeepers
you
are taught that you have to first like
cover
give
the near post.
priority to cover your near
Protect,
post.
yeah.
Yeah,
And also, like, what happens is that makes the forward make additional, like, what there are like two actions instead of one, right? Like there's a pass and there's another shot
yeah, yeah.
instead of just one shot. So
Higher
there are
probability of
more opportunities to mess up.
yeah.
So we
Plus,
have
there's a
discussed.
defender covering too, in
Yeah.
some ways.
Hmm. So we've discussed in the past that Chelsea have an issue with their goalkeeper position where it's not world class. Like the quality of goalkeeper doesn't justify the team that, like, the type of club or the size of club that Chelsea is, and it's going to continue until they make a change. I think there is uh, a goalkeeper that you guys were talking about, Petrovic. I think
No, there are
who's the
multiple
second?
people.
Who's the
Right
backup
now,
goalkeeper?
there's
Yeah.
right now there's Jorgensen, and
Jorgensen. Jorgensen. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Petrovic is
So
on loan.
okay. So yeah, you guys were mentioning that Jorgensen is being blooded in using the cup competition. So I don't know if he's ready now to displace Sanchez.
Yeah, I don't think it's about displacing Sanchez. I think Sanchez has some good moments throughout. He has a good shot stopping ability at times. His distribution is decent, but unfortunately, even he dwells on the ball a bit too much. Like, I'm sure it's not comforting for Chelsea fans to see him in goal with the ball at his feet because he makes too many errors. Like, if I look at the same scenario for Arsenal with Raya, they would be much more secure. Or if I imagine Allison in that position or Kelleher in that position, they would be much more secure. So I think that's where we are one level below the top teams right now in terms of the keeping position and in terms of defense. And I think, but overall, I can't complain. I think at the beginning of the game, if let's say someone would have said a 1-1 draw, I would have definitely taken it. And on the whole, I think it was a good game, an enjoyable game for sure. One game which we missed out on was the Nottingham Newcastle, the team which were formerly third. And I think again Nottingham took the lead and then Newcastle fought back. So I think very impressive win from Newcastle away from home. And they're right up there, right? Like I'll just go see the table. I think Chelsea, Arsenal, Forest, Brighton on 19 points. Fulham, Newcastle, Villa, Spurs, Brentford at 16 points. At 18. Tottenham. Sorry, till Villa it's 18 points, and Tottenham, Brentford 16, and then Bournemouth, Manu at 15. So I think it's just crazy right now. Like even if I look at the next 3 games, I think everything can change completely.
The Premier League has sort of equalized a bit, like due to the amount of money that all clubs now have, and with certain restrictions through FFP that have come in. Even the mid-tier clubs or the lower-tier clubs are beginning to have investment opportunities available that they can have a competitive team. And another factor is that because the Premier League, like mid-tier clubs, have so much more money than mid-tier clubs in other like top five leagues, and even top-tier clubs in other leagues lower than the top five, that they're able to poach talent from there and just play them in their own team, which uh, which overall creates sort of a talent drain, or well, not a talent drain, but a talent accumulation to one league. It's just money talking, and that's why also it's probably a lot more competitive.
Agree completely, but just giving a context, like I had sent you guys that the Serie A table as well, right? There are 6 teams in Serie A which are now battling for the top spot, which have a difference of 1 point between them. So I think overall, the football this season has become a lot more competitive across leagues.
It's actually just these two leagues, EPL and
Hmm.
uh,
Serie A.
Serie A, because
Even
after you
Barca
sent
lost,
it,
by the way.
yeah, Barca lost. So after you sent that table, I went and checked like tables of all the top leagues.
Other leagues.
And I could see, that Bayern have a very healthy lead, PSG have a very healthy lead, Barca have a 6 point lead over Madrid, but Madrid have a game in hand. So that could
So
be 3 points.
look at the league in a different angle. So if
Uh-huh.
you look at the French league, PSG are well on top, but then you have Monaco and a couple of other teams which are very close. Like again,
Mhm.
like the Premier League. Again, if you see the Premier League outright, Liverpool have a different position on their own. City are somewhere midway, but then 19 to 15, this that congestion begins. Similarly, most of the other leagues they have these pockets somewhere
Mhm.
between the Champions League position and let's say the European competitions, where it's very crowded. At least at this juncture, it's too early to say very honestly, but
Mhm. Mhm.
But
it'll be really fun.
I really feel, I don't know if we are feeling this way, but I think it's the same case every season. I feel. I don't think it's anything different. There's a minor difference would be there. It's just because like the top teams and their players have been playing the Euros and all of those things, and they have kind of not hit the ground running. And I kind of that's why like teams like City or like Arsenal or someone like are kind of not hit the form right now. But like most of the seasons is typically the same thing after like 10 games. It's like one or two teams are ahead, and then it's like a logjam kind of a thing between like next 6, 7, 8 teams or like whatever. So I think it's nothing. I don't think there's any statistical deviation to read into this. I feel. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, and do let us know what you thought about the games this weekend. And we'll see you next week.